And we are back at it again, guys, with another episode of Combat and Cryptids. It's your boy, obviously, Jimmy. So, yeah, it is Sunday. So, yesterday obviously was a hectic last week and stuff like that, and this weekend has been no different. So, yeah, we're a day late on this, but we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. I just want to start this episode out by saying, hey, the last video that I posted was probably the best video that I've ever had as far as growth. And I want to appreciate everybody who subscribed to the channel, who liked, who commented, everything like that. Like, you guys don't have no idea how much I appreciate that. And just reading everybody's comments and stuff like that, like it was very, like, I guess more uplifting. It makes you like, damn, like, now that I've started this, now I have I got an obligation to be like, hey, now you better put one out because people obviously wanted to listen and want to hear this stuff. So yeah, so I appreciate everybody. I Some of you guys, like, it's all great, like everything so far, and everything that I go through. Like, as soon as I see the notifications, like from Gwen, Vernon. Obviously, I hope some of these names aren't your guys' real names, like Wax Pants, like all these things. Like, it's like, I just appreciate it all, guys, and for your guys' support and going from like the subscribers that I had from a week ago to now, it's like doubled. So I appreciate everybody tuning in, whether it's you're tuning in for 30 seconds, 2 minutes, whatever it is. Anything helps, and I appreciate it all, guys, for sure. So yeah, but other than that, we're off to a different one this time. So everybody, obviously, I don't know what it is, and I guess it's like your vibe attracts your tribe. I guess is the best way to put that. Is like, I'm always into like weird and like creepy and like scary shit, and my wife, she's more into like the alien stuff. Like the extraterrestrial. Like, there's no way we can be the only ones like in this universe type stuff. So it's really nice to just kind of bounce ideas off of her, because she really puts me in like the mindset of like, hey, like, I know you want to talk about these things and do these things, so like, just give everybody what the hell they want. So for this week's episode, it's got to be about Bigfoot. Yeah, that would only make sense to me. And so we live in Ohio, and I don't know if you guys have ever. There's a lot of stuff that happens like around Ohio, like the Ohio Howl and stuff like that. Like, there's all kinds of just creepy like footage that goes on, or not even footage, but more recordings of like sounds and noises and stuff like that happen. And the woods around here are they're just, I guess it's very thick wooded in some areas, like especially where we live. And I got a couple recordings of some places and stuff that I want to go. The only bad part about it is trying to go to these places at night. Most of these are like parks and stuff like that, so you can't go to them after dark. But sometimes you gotta like risk that stuff. So I think we're going to. So I want to go to these areas for maybe like 10, 15 minutes. Because you don't want to. I'm very big on, like, you don't look for things that you don't want to find, I guess. But it's always nice just to hear those kinds of things and just to be in those kinds of areas and feel that, that energy and that vibe that's out there and stuff, because like animals give off those kinds of things, and if an area is sketchy or stuff like that, like, obviously the animals won't be there. So yeah, so that's what I'm trying to do, as far as like to get like real world like stuff and put them in this video, and put like, give you like a 5 minute clip of like, hey, this is what it sounds like around where I live and stuff like that. And feel free, like, if you guys have any videos or clips or anything that you guys want to like send me to like my email, that, you guys could do that, and I'll put the shit in the show. It doesn't matter to me, as long as it's like not too crazy and stuff like that. But my email address is combatandcryptids@yahoo.com if you want to, and I'll put the tag in the description too as well. That way, if you guys want to send me whatever you got, or like where you live and stuff like that, or the creepy shit that's going on around there and stuff, like, I'll put it on here, either at the beginning or the end of the episode, and then I'll tag your name in it and stuff like that if you guys want to. And then also what I want to do, so I think I'm almost at like 200 subscribers right now. So I think when I get to 500, I think I'm going to make like an added episode for just subscribers only, and then basically give you like a 20 or 30 minute like video of me just talking about something like odd, or like a weird story and stuff like that, just specifically for subscribers, and then obviously just still put out the weekly one and stuff like that. At least that's what I'm thinking. I don't know. I mean, it's just, obviously I work a full time job, so it's kind of, like throughout the week, I bounce off ideas from people at like work and people I hang out with and stuff like that. So I try to do different things and just find out different stories and stuff like that. I mean, if you guys got suggestions for anything, I mean, everybody likes the creepy ass shit and stuff like that. So I'm open for it. I mean, up to this point, nothing is a burden, and this is all fun. Like literally, it's Sunday. The wife and the kids are out. They're going to go pick up food and stuff like that. So it's just me just here at the house, and I can just drink a Red Bull and just talk about weird shit and not have any, there's no crazy sounds going on in the background. I mean, it is a beautiful day in Ohio, though. Like, it is. It's like 50 degrees, and that's beautiful for where we're from. So, but yeah, other than that, let's get into this thing. So the first thing, so I'm gonna try something different, and I hope that it works, and I hope that the recording doesn't like get cut out or anything like that. But basically, the story that I came upon was it's a website called Mysterious Universe, and they posted this one it was from July 5th, 2020, by Brent Swanser, and the encounter name was called Very Strange Firefighter Bigfoot Encounters. And for the majority of it, I mean, it's kind of creepy. So basically, from this, it just goes into like all these firefighters and stuff. Like obviously, they're in the woods, more forest fires, I guess you would want to say, not like house fires and stuff like that. But forest fires are one of the most spectacular destructive forces of nature. These infernos have the potential to wipe out wide swaths of land and disrupt entire ecosystems. And in one day and age, they are largely caused by human interference. During such catastrophes, the wildlife is often shaken up to a degree, and if Bigfoot exists, it would be seen that they would not be above being scattered and pushed out by all of it. According to some reports by firefighters, that it seems to be exactly the case, and here we will look at a selection of reports of Bigfoot seen on the fringes of blazes by the people who fight them. Um, so yeah, but before we get into that, so if you guys want to hear like obviously the whole Bigfoot and everything like that, like a lot of people have not seen it, and some people would like to, and it's like always like something that you would like want to encounter and stuff like that. But in my first episode, I go into my encounter, which happened on three different scenarios, three separate occasions that happened, and I'll go into one of them, and then maybe on the next one we talk about Bigfoot or something like that. I'll go into the second one and stuff like it. Just more like short snippets of the whole encounter, not like a broad, like kind of the same thing did with the Dogman one last week. So basically, so I'm from before we get into the Bigfoot um, and like firefighter stories. I always like to just give like my personal. This is my opinion on it and what I saw and stuff like that, and then we'll go into what other people encounters see and what they say. So basically from there, so I'm from Okeechobee, Florida, born and raised, and my family still lives there. They're still in the area and stuff like that. But basically, we lived out on this this property is called the Prairie, and basically the Prairie is just a wide open vast of just wooded cows, all this kind of crazy stuff, and they like the area is just like it's made for camping. Like, well, at least when we lived there, it was made for camping, and that's all that it was. You would go out there and camp, and you would ride four wheelers and do all this crazy stuff. But me and a couple of my buddies, we all lived around each other. We all obviously we come to, we would always go to basically like these same trails in the same area. We'd always ride around, and we'd be out there at weird times of the night and stuff. We'd always be out there in the evening, on a Friday or a Saturday, riding around on four wheelers and stuff. And we came to this one part. Basically, once we got to this one part, there's like a group of shrubs and trees, and it's got palmettos, it's got oak trees, it's got all this crazy stuff. And there's a bunch of them over here, and then it opens up to just grass, and then they're just scattered everywhere. And we were taking these turns, and we were coming through these little whoops that we had, and and I was the last one in the on the trail, And one of my friends, they turn the corner, they go, and they whip the lights, and right behind, so there's a thicket of trees, and in front of it that we have called they're called like cow feeders, and basically it's just where like people who live out there, they'll just throw like bags of feed and stuff in there just to feed the cows and give them nutrients and stuff like that. But basically from there we turned a hard right, and we're going to, down this other trail, and at that immediate time I was like, I get to the point where I see what I think um, is a person behind these cow feeders. And from there, basically, it's like, it's once you see one of these things, it's like your brain basically goes into like, hey, like you try and rationalize everything you've seen up to that point, and you try and make sense of like, hey, was this a person? What everything that you've seen up to this point in the natural order, the natural kingdom, like this is bears aren't prevalent in Florida. Um, Florida panthers are probably about the biggest thing up to this point that you really see. And you got hogs, you got cows and stuff like that, but nothing that stands up on 2 feet. All right, so it's already just a weird, and the vibe and the environment out there is always creepy as fuck. If you go to this area and you go out there and you turn off everything and you sound it sounds eerie already. So to go out there and see this, you were like, you always try and rationalize it. So my buddies and everybody, they take off, boom, they keep going. They didn't see it obviously, and they're not looking for it. I wasn't looking for it either. So basically, I get to that turn, I see what I think is a person, and then I slam on the brake because there's not supposed to be anybody out there. And if there is, usually you see headlights or like fires and stuff like that. This is just a random area in the woods. So then I stop, I hit the brakes, and I reverse back, and I point my headlights on. And I would say the thing is far enough away that you don't feel in danger. But at the point in time, you don't know much about this, and you don't know much about what a Bigfoot is or anything like that. So I'm not thinking there's no danger, there's no anger, no hostility. So you don't think those kinds of things, especially you're only like 15 or 16. It's not really something that is going through your mind. You think at that point you're invincible. So of course, if it's something you want to see, and we didn't have cell phones and stuff like that, so couldn't take pictures or anything like that. This is just going off of what I saw, and basically standing right behind this cow feeder. And cow feeders alone are probably about 6.5, 7 feet tall at the tip of the roof. And they have like little roofs on them, like little houses and stuff. And basically, from there, standing behind that is what looks to be like the biggest monkey I have ever seen in my entire life. And when I mean a monkey, it's physical, like it's there. This isn't like, your typical like the first encounter I had with this thing, it was more it was I don't know how to explain it. It was more of like an apparition, like a ghost, like the outline. I didn't have a light at that time. So all you see is the outline of something, and then you can hear it running off in the woods breaking shit. But the physical, it being there, it didn't seem like it was like a person or a thing. With headlights on this thing, and it's probably, if I had to put a distance on it, it's maybe 75, 100 feet, like in distance away. So it's pretty close, but it's not close enough to where you can think like it can get on you like pretty quick. But the thing that always gets me about this is the way it was breathing and the motions that it's going through was very natural. It's normal how you would see a like an animal or a person in like a normal setting. The odd thing about it is, and I don't know if you ever seen Jurassic Park 3, where they're on the island, the kid gets stranded and stuff like that, and they're trying to look for the kid, and they're going through and they're trying to find him and stuff like that, and then at one point they find each other, and they finally find each other, and the kid says, "How did you find me, Mom?" And he was like, well, he's like, "I heard the cell phone ring." And they try and play it back to where the cell phone is and stuff like that. They're like, "Who had it?" Well, the guy who got eaten had it. And they turn around and this big ass dinosaur standing right there, and he's just breathing, like you can just see him breathing, and it looks real. Like that's the way it is. That's the most shocking thing for me. That's what I could compare it to at this point. And the eyes of this thing and the skin, it had like it didn't look like a normal monkey, like a monkey that you've seen, like all black hair. Like it was definitely like matted, different color, like a orangish brown. And this thing is probably the creepiest thing you could ever see. But it didn't. There was no like anger. You know, like you see the face of some animals, and you can always tell like everything. The way I attribute it is everything in Florida was made out there to kill you, and whether it be alligators, water moccasins, rattlesnakes, hogs, whatever it is, mosquitoes, whatever the fuck it is. All these things were out there to kill you. But when you look at this point in time at this, and as I was staring at this thing, there wasn't any of that hatred or hostility. Am I trying to figure out if it's going to get to that point? Fuck no. So we see this thing, and it feels like 10, 15 minutes, but maybe it's probably like 30, 40 seconds that I see this thing. And you can see like the breath, like that cool air, like breath, like it's not fucking freezing cold there, but at this point in time, you can see the breath because it's late at night. You know, we'd ride four wheelers up until midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. So it was just that right there was physical, and that thing was there. There was no, and I'm assuming it's just eating food or eating the grain and food and stuff in there that's in there. Or maybe it was seeing if something was around there trying to eat it, like rabbits or whatever the fuck else would eat, or raccoons and shit like that. But for the majority of it, when that one, like the first time I saw it, it was more of like, it would look more spiritual. Like it didn't look like an actual being or creature. Seeing this, it looked like a no shit animal. And it was probably one of the most scariest things to this day that I've ever seen in my entire life. And it was probably the worst thing that I could ever imagine or see. And when you close your eyes and think of something that has scared the shit out of you in your life, when I close my eyes and see that, you can see perfect the face, the neck, the broad shoulders, the arms. The arms are always longer. They're always for some reason longer, and they go like down to the knees, which I thought is always just a weird thing. But that was one of the encounters that I had, and it scared the shit out of me. Obviously, I got out of there. It didn't Nothing became aggressive of the nature or anything like that. But basically, it scared the shit out of me. So that was the first time that you can actually see something, and that was basically like the first time you write it off as you can always rationalize it. You didn't have a light, you couldn't see it. Maybe it was something you thought it was or wasn't or whatever. But when you physically to actually see something like that, it's probably one of the creepiest things you could ever see. So, on that note, that's my encounter, one of the encounters with this creature. And up to this point, before I made this podcast, I think I maybe told 2 or 3 people. And to go from that to now on this platform, being able to be okay with talking about it, like it feels pretty nice about it. And it makes you feel like, hey, this is maybe not as bad as you would think it is, I guess. Or maybe people are just as weird as you are in this sense. Everybody's got all their damn dogs out. All right, so anyways, back to the firefighter one. This one was a really creepy one too. And this one took me maybe, I don't know, maybe probably, I looked this thing up for maybe like 10, 15 minutes and found this story. And I was like, oh my God, this sounds pretty cool. So the first report comes from the files, from the BFRO, and allegedly occurred in 1993 in Snohomish County, Washington, in the United States. The witness claims to be a firefighter with a wildland firefighting crew with the U.S. Forest Service, and at the time he was assigned to a place called Mount Baker, Snoqualm, NF. I don't know what the hell that name is. On July 22nd of that year, the area was plagued with numerous lightning strikes, some of which were causing wildfires. And so the witness and the crew were called into action. They broke into 2 groups in order to determine what areas were hit, and it was not long before he saw the telltale smoke of a fire in the Beckler River Road area. He and his partner geared up and began their climb up a very rugged, steep, and rocky terrain, which was so choked with brush that it took them almost 3 hours to navigate and finally reached the fire. They fought the blaze for a further 2 hours, managing to extinguish it after when they decided to take a different route back down the mountainside. As they made their way down slowly as the treacherous terrain, they saw that his partner Joe dropped his shovel to send it careening around 100 feet down the slope to land on a rocky outcropping. The witness made to go retrieve it and noticed a cave nearby, partially hidden by brush and trees, from which belched forward a horrendous stench. He shone his flashlight within, but it was too dark to gauge the size, and the wall of the stench kept him from getting any closer. It was about that time that he says he was overcome by an overall eerie feeling. For some reason, he could not quite figure it out. It was then that when he have a truly bizarre experience of what he says. I yelled up to Joe, and I had found a cave, and it really stunk. He seemed to just want to keep heading back to the truck, so he continued down the path we were on before. I climbed down for the shovel. I was looking down the mountain to see how it was going to get down off the ledge and connect with the trail we were on before. As I was standing there, I saw out from over my head a crash and rolled in the ravine, or a boulder. It crashed and rolled in the ravine about 10 to 15 yards down the hill from me. I yelled back up to Hill Joe, "Did you throw that?" When he yelled, "No." I realized that he had already walked away from where he had been and was now no way to the left of my location. It was at that moment I realized that the rock could not have been thrown by him, nor did it roll down the hill, because I would have heard it crashing down from above me. I then looked back up the hill from where the rocket came from, just in time to see another rock coming from above me. The second rock hit the ground more to the left of me and below me. I was visually scanning the area where the rock had come from when I heard movement in the brush. I crouched down and watched the area. I then saw a dark, hairy figure walking upright along the side of the mountain, away from me. It was partially obscured by the brush and trees, so I couldn't really tell the color or exact height, but I would guess about 7 to 9 feet tall. I watched it for a few seconds, then yelled to Joe, "I see it." I said, "I think it's a Bigfoot." What the fuck? As soon as I yelled that, I looked back up and it was dead still and silent. I felt like it stopped and hid when I yelled because I didn't see or hear anything else at this point. I really wanted to get out of there, so I side-hilled over to Joe and we quickly descended back to our vehicle. We were both very freaked out and talked about it on the way back to the ranger station, where we reported the incident to our wildlife biologist and other officials at the ranger district. I was later contacted by someone at the U of W who wanted to interview me and take me to the site. I moved from the area shortly afterwards and I never took him there, which is why I'm submitting the report. I want people to know my story. What was going on here? Even more spectacular than that, the account is one that was already covered by the BFRO and supposedly occurred in 1999. The anonymous witness, a government firefighter, claimed that on August 6th, at Battle Mountain, Nevada, was hit with several brush fires that would spin out of control to become what is known as the Battle Mountain Complex Fire. As they made their way through the charred hellscape, the witness claims that they came across an apparently injured figure that they at first from a distance thought to be another firefighter, but which quickly proved to be anything but what the witness says in the report. I observed an animal, wounded by fire, moving on all fours, not like a bear, more like an ape. Firefighters captured animals, contacted local vet and medical doctors, U.S. Department of Wildlife and Fish Department, and Interior, and the Bureau of Land Management on the scene. Animal tranquilized and moved to an unknown location. Those at the scenes told not to talk about what they saw. Animal was approximately 7.5 feet tall, human-like arms and legs, face not like a man or an ape, but mixed between. It was a male because it had genitalia, uncircumcised and human-like hair covering most of the body except chest. Chest has hair but sparse hands with sparse hair. Palms bare with 5 digits with human opposition of thumb and 5th digit. Speech attempted to communicate with caregivers. Once it realized they were attempting to care for it, multiple burns on the hands, feet, legs, and body. Some 2nd and 3rd degree burns using rule of nines, approximately 45% of the body with burns. Like, holy shit. Like, where are these people? See, this is the kind of, and I guess probably the hardest thing is you'll never know if any of this is true. But it seems very hard to come up with stories like this and talk about stories like this for, like, these are official people who, you know, they have, why would they make this up? Why would somebody want to make this up? That's what I don't get is, these are the kind of people that and I don't know, who the fuck told them not to say anything? Like, why would you not? Why would you? There has to be, at this point, there's got to be somebody with a camera up there. I mean, a biologist, somebody's got to be up there with a camera of some sort. And in 1999, you would think if you're in there, if you're working there, you're at least in your late 20s, early 30s, at least. So they're not dead. Um, these people, like, that's what I don't get is most of these stories or these sightings that people see, they're never like this is too much to just be like, no, it didn't happen. Like how could it not happen? Why? Like if you saw this and you knew you were up there fighting fires and you saw what looked like a person, so they go down to help it, and it's basically like, all right, you guys can help me, then why would no one? Why wouldn't anybody want to bring that to light? Are they scared of something? Are they scared of what could be the outcome of this situation? I don't know. But it blows my mind, to be honest. So the doctor and the vet together provided care and moved. Hold on, let me see if I can. Yeah, there's no way. Fucking hell. All right, so I'm trying something else. I don't know. Maybe it just won't let me fucking do it. Whatever. So the doctor and vet working together provided care and moved it to an unknown location locally. This note is given in violation of orders given by BLM, DOI, and DF and W witnesses numbered in the area of 30 to 25. Word is out in the government agency, and among the firefighters, since an MD was called out, many thought a firefighter was injured. Please note that I am a government employee of one of the listed agencies fighting brush fires in the wilderness area of Nevada. And under order not to disclose information, I believe a cover up is in the making because people need to know the animal needs to be kept alive and studied and released in a protected area. So, yeah, considering how dramatic and incredible this report was, the BFRO at first looked at it with raised eyebrows and considered that it might be a hoax. But the researcher Tom Powell believed it to be true and followed up um, on it not only to confirm that the fire had indeed happened, spreading to 180,000 acres and enlisting over 600 firefighters to battle it, but also managing to get into contact with the original witness, who he calls Marty, and who gave him further, more detailed information, including that there were 20 other witnesses to the strange event. He also provided a detailed, rather incredible description of the capture and treatment of the apparent Bigfoot. And Powell would write in his report, the incident happened in the early afternoon. About 20 firefighters were directly involved. The injured patient apparently wandered within sight of the fire crew and was then surrounded. The patient seemed to know that he was captured because he soon gave up. Marty mentioned this several times and he just gave up. The patient sat down on his ass. They said buttocks, but I said ass. Giving no evidence of a will to resist, like a dog gives up and then you can do anything with it. The patient was laid on the ground at first. His injuries were rather serious, including burns to the hands, feet, legs, and trunk, as well as a much singed hair. It didn't take long for medical services to get to the scene. The attending medical team, including the regular MD for the fire crews, a vet that Marty didn't recognize, and one, well, see, that's already weird. A vet that Marty didn't recognize, and one or more paramedics. The vet was taken aback at working on the creatures so human like, and he is reported to have allowed the physician to do most of the work. At some point, Demerol and morphine, or Demerol and Demerol, Demerol and morphine were administered. The patient was placed on a spine board, which was too small. He was then placed on a regular ambulance stretcher. The sides were left down because the bodies hung over too far. The feet hung off the end. A cut down was performed to obtain an intravenous line, and fluids were administered. During the treatment of his wounds and the efforts at life support, the patient communicated with moans, groans, and grumbling. Bowel sounds were heard by Marty, who was as close as 3 feet from the patient. No language like vocalizations were heard. The patient responded to touch, specifically patting and stroking to calm him. You're not going to find an ape or monkey responding the same way. 2 or 3 times Marty mentioned that the patient was especially responsive to a young Native American woman who started ministering to him right from the very beginning. The patient was removed from the scene in the back of a utility truck, not in an ambulance. Marty said an ambulance would have altered or alerted townsfolk and possibly news reporters, thinking that a firefighter had been injured. No one would follow a nondescript van. The total time from initial sighting to extraction was estimated at 3 hours. There was no urination, defecation, or vomit at the scene. The patient did not eat anything during that time. Serum and blood were leaking from the burned areas of the body. The area of the arm on which was cut down was shaved. The hair probably fell to the ground. There was significant blood from the cut and down sight, and from the subsequent insertion of venous line. Oh, Jesus fucking Christ, that hurt. And some of the blood dripped to the ground. No one knew where the patient was taken. No video cameras were on scene to film any aspect of the incident. The fire commander was present. He had a camera and he did record what he saw. The patient is described as being about 7 feet tall, give or take a few inches. Marty does not give a weight estimate. Most of the body is covered by brownish hair, about 2 inches in length. No gray hairs are evident. There are no mats noted on the coat. There is an odor about the patient. It is not an especially obnoxious odor. Marty calls it a natural odor. But he had a hard time describing it. He said it's similar to a strong equine odor. The head is not sloped. The forehead is heavy boned. The lips large but human-like. The ear human-like and tight to the head with the earlobe attached, not dangling. Jesus Christ. How could somebody go into great detail like this and you would think it's not? I mean, no one's like, so in all the research and stuff that I've looked over, I've never heard of this story. And it makes it so weird that nothing has ever been disclosed or nothing's ever been brought up. This is just it's just so weird to me, I guess. The patient is strong-jawed. He could not remember the color of the eyes, but they might be brown. The head is about 2 times the size of a human head. There is no hair on the face, but no palms or soles of the feet. There's a great bulk to the patient, but there is no fat. He said his observation of the form of the body did not match with the one running in the woods. He called the film a probable hoax. The hands are about 1.5 times a human hand. 5 fingers with opposable thumbs. The fingernails are thicker and heavier, and one was chipped. The feet are large, 5 ties on each foot. No evidence of fractures, injuries, arthritis, deformation. The sexual features are those of an uncircumcised male, matching the human anatomy. Marty made the comment several times that they are not monkey or ape features. He felt he was in the presence of a very human creature. Jesus Christ. So, was there really a Bigfoot injured in a fire out of Battle Mountain, Nevada? And if so, where did it go? We probably will never know for sure. Finally, we have a report from Oregon Bigfoot, which purportedly happened in September 2011 near White City, Jackson County, Oregon. The witness has described himself as a wildland firefighter who was at the time place called the Dead Indian Mountain fighting a bushfire. At one point, they stopped near a fire line to have a bite to eat. And that was when they heard a very deliberate banging sound that sounded like someone bashing together pieces of wood. These noises would seemingly follow them around and appeared to have some grate very close to their position, which was all not a little unsettling, especially since they could not determine what was creating the commotion. They put it out of their mind and focused on battling the fire. Then the witness saw something truly outlandish up the hill in the brush, he says. There were multiple sets of eyes that flashed at us as we moved about 60 feet and nothing flat. I'd say they were about 100 feet or less, formed the unburned brush. I'm 6'3", and it was easy to see that the one was taller than me by the glow of the eyes. I only saw a blur of color as they moved, but when they stopped, the other eyes disappeared as I was left looking at one set squatted down low to the ground. We began to make noise, and I beat my shovel against the palanquin I was carrying for the sawyer, and we began walking towards the one set of eyes. They glowed kind of yellowish green, and they were fixated on me. Some of the other guys saw them too as I moved, but I got about 40 to 50 feet from it, maybe closer. I realized they weren't going to run. Uh, we were aware of each other. It looked me right in the eyes, but it was very almost sharpless black, no silhouette, just the eyes looking at me. I decided to back off, and our boss said to line up. There are animals in the woods, and for everyone to calm down because it was quickly turning into a state of chaos. And people were getting scared, so we lined up and marched out and didn't see any more eyes that night. As the night turned to day, we were all the way up to the top division Alpha, where we had lost a containment line and the fire burned the green. As we gridded, it would be found what looked like a human-sized and shaped footprint over the top of the boot prints. I'll never forget these eyes staring at me. Like, I know you're here. You know I'm here. If you want to make something of it, I will. Some of us got the impression it was protecting the others by staring us down. I'm glad it didn't get any closer. Yeah, I couldn't imagine. Like at that point, I mean, you're out there to do a job and stuff like that, and it's already hard enough to be in this kind of setting in this kind of an area and stuff. But to see, like, if you've ever been in a setting like that to where you're like, hey, like I'm here and I'm the alpha in this area, and when you go up to something, most 9 times out of 10, most things will back down or run away. But you always have that 1%, whether it be your hog hunting or um, like people, whether you're out and you just get that vibe from people where you're like, hey, like I'm the one in charge, or like your dog at the house, where I'm the one in charge and I'm the alpha and you're gonna back down. And when you get to that point where you cannot, like, you're already like your chest is puffed out and you're like, I'm the fucking big cheese here, but whatever you're going against doesn't back down, that is the most terrifying thing ever. When something calls your bluff and makes you feel like you are less of a person after that. And if you've ever been in that situation, if you ever felt like that, I mean, I can only imagine what these guys, you're out there with 10, 15 of your buddies that you're fighting fires with, and I'm assuming they're all pretty decent sized guys up to this point, and they're obviously not scared of things that are in the woods and stuff like that. So for something to be like that, to where your leader has to be like, hey, you motherfuckers need to snap out of it, because either way we still got a job to do. And it's like one of those things where you don't fuck with me and I won't fuck with you type things. What's that thing? It's called FAFO. Like, you fuck around, you're gonna find out. And sometimes it's better just not to fuck around and just do what you gotta do. Help them, go do your shit, and be done with it. I mean, that's really the biggest thing is, I always tell people. So even when I was in the Marine Corps and stuff like that, and you would always have people that would chase ribbons, and that's what we called them. And you're just a ribbon chaser. You just want to get these ribbons, and you want to talk about this and be all this, be about this life and stuff like that. And a lot of people would find this out, that if you chased ribbons, it, at what cost did you have to get that ribbon? Did people have to die? Did you have to lose your sanity? Things like that. You have to do stuff like, and most times to get the ribbon, the risk is not worth the reward. And the same thing goes with all this stuff. Like, people who have these encounters, and you're actively trying to look for these things. Like, I get it going out in the woods and you're just out there and you happen to stumble upon this stuff. But to actively go in the woods and look for these things and like be a nuisance, more like it, that's like, I don't know. And I'm not against, like, again, this is just all my opinion. If that's something you want to do, that's cool. But sometimes it's not always good to, when you're looking for something and you find it and you're like, shit, maybe that wasn't the best idea and stuff like that. So it's always, I mean, respect the woods as much as you can. You out there, you out there to hunt, that's cool. One thing. You're not out there to look for Bigfoot, or maybe you are, and then one day you're gonna find it, and maybe it's not all fairy tales and greatness, and maybe it's some bad shit. I don't know if you ever seen the movie Primal Rage, but that's a scary ass movie about like Bigfoot esque creatures, and it's the fucking ones you don't want to fuck with. Like, maybe that's what you'll find. Maybe, I don't know. You tell me. But that fear, that's one thing you don't want to fuck with. So, but yeah, I mean, other than that, that's pretty much it. I mean, this was just a really odd, like, I guess probably the weirdest thing for me about this whole story. And this is just, again, this is all just my opinion. This is just one guy talking in here on a Sunday about bullshit. So, the weird thing about this is these firefighters had nothing else. They were just out there to do a job. And the most alarming part for me is that most of these encounters that were talked about or that happened, they happened to a lot of people, but only maybe one or two people came forward about it. And I don't know if it's because, maybe people are scared to bring it up for fear of like hey, like I don't want the judgment of what people think of me, but it always seems like there's everyone always has a great deal of like, let's go through this and cover it up, rather than like let's figure out what actually happened and what it was. And that's probably the most alarming thing is there's always, will it ever come to a point in time where they like where you have 100% definite answer that this is a flesh and blood creature, whether it be the dogman or Bigfoot or aliens, whatever it is, any kind of cryptid of some sort or extraterrestrial of some sort. Do I think we'll ever get to that point? No, because I don't think the human, like the people, could handle that. And you'd have to rewrite so many things. You have to rewrite, you know, like religion. There's all kinds of things that this would just mess up. And I think that's probably the biggest thing about it is why we'll never get to that point. But we will see. Maybe one day. Maybe when we're all old and we're like 65 on our deathbeds, and maybe at one point it might come out to be cool. So, but other than that, I mean, that was pretty much it for this one. So I had another thing all jived up for it. It was like the 10 most convincing Bigfoot sightings. And probably, I mean, obviously, if you know anything about like cryptids or anything like that, probably the Patterson and Gimlin film is probably the craziest ones. But I mean, you have all kinds of different ones. You got the Marble Mountain Bigfoot guy, and basically that was like a youth group was camping in the Marble Mountain Wilderness in California, when a leader noticed a strange-looking creature skulking along a high ridge. He was filmed for nearly 7 minutes, making the somewhat grainy footage the longest video of an alleged Bigfoot sighting. And California's got some weird stuff up there too. I've heard some really creepy shit come from California. Um, but then you got the Eric Shipton snowy Bigfoot slash Yeti footprint. And basically in 1951, a British explorer, Eric Eel Shipton, snapped his photo while trekking through the Himalayas. In 1951, alleging that the footprint belonged to a Yeti. And in 2014, Christie's auction house in London capitalized on the worldwide interest in Bigfoot and sold the original photo for nearly $5,000. Everybody's always just willing to make out a buck on most of this shit. The Independence Day Bigfoot, called the Independence Day film, a beast was caught in a remarkably clear video that shows an alleged adult Bigfoot walking through woods with a cub kid in tow. The filmmaker and exact locations are unknown. Many skeptics claim that there is a telling visible seam of a gorilla suit. Maybe, and I guess for most of these, you can always try and there's always hoaxes and stuff out there, and you never know. Especially finding stuff on the internet nowadays, it's so hard to find what's like original and like that raw footage of stuff. But I remember seeing this one of this guy. He was riding a dirt bike, and it was somewhere in it's got to be somewhere out west, because the trees and the dense how dense it is. That's kind of what it looked like, I guess. And he sounded like he was Canadian too, so that's how you know it's like got to be up north, because not too many Canadian guys are down in Nolans and stuff like that. But basically, he was going through the woods, and there was a lot of trees. And a lot of paths, sometimes trees falls and stuff, especially like wind and stuff. But there was a lot of trees that were knocked over, and he had like a tiny dirt bike. It wasn't massive, it wasn't huge, but he had the dirt bike, and he was basically the ones that he couldn't get over. He would basically pick the dirt bike over it, and he was always like everything always starts out all fine and dandy, and he basically gets to this one big ass tree, and he starts climbing over it. He was like, see, I could stop here, but then we wouldn't be able to figure out where this path goes or where it leads to. And as soon as he says that, you hear in the background, you hear like someone screaming for help or like screaming like bloody murder. And then this guy is like, he stops immediately and he's like, what the fuck was that? And then right behind him, maybe like 10, 15 feet away, you hear like massive trees breaking. And he just hightails it out. I mean, talking like turns that dirt bike around and whips it out of there. And then he falls over towards the end because he like goes too fast and he falls over. But those kind of things, like that would be awesome if those things were true. Because you're out in the woods, like most animals aren't gonna sound like that. And if you've been out in the woods enough, you know what those animals sound like. And to hear something sound human-like is probably the fucking scariest thing you could ever see. Like skinwalkers and stuff like that, like shape-shifting and stuff like that. That shit is wild. And some of the stories people have for like not going there and trying like you don't feed into those things. And what I mean by that is if you like most like your natural instincts are if you've watched enough movies and stuff like that, it's never to like especially like in the woods and stuff like that. If someone's screaming for help, it's always easier to go get like someone of authority and have a few people out there than have you just go like see what it is. Because maybe it's just like one of those things where even if you see like ghost spirits and demonic spirits, and I'm getting off subject, but it's the end of it, so let's see what we can set up for next week as far as what we want to talk about. But basically those things is you never want to go and feed into those things for fear that maybe what's calling you or what's asking for help is like some shit that you don't ever want to fucking be around and stuff, or you don't want to see, I guess. And it's just one of the things where like, man, fuck that, I'm not doing that. I've seen enough movies to be like, hey, maybe you shouldn't do this. And probably the movies is what set you up to be like, nah, I'm not for that. I'm not dealing with that shit. So it really does. But yeah, other than that, firefighters seeing Bigfoot and you never heard about it, and most people never hear about it. And to this day, we might never. But other than that, that's probably it for today's episode. I appreciate you guys. Again, all the subscriptions, you subscribe to the channel, there's our views, watch, the likes, the comments, everything. So make sure on this video, if you guys see, just hit the thumbs up on that. And yeah, other than that, everybody have a great week. And hope to see you guys in the comments. And other than that, I'll catch you guys later. Peace.